That space, brimming with happiness and a sense of achievement, was suddenly seized by absolute silence, as if locked beneath a thick sheet of ice, the moment those words were spoken. My sister Olivia declared this in a clear, ringing voice, as though asserting an unquestionable right that left no room for debate. Her perfectly styled blonde hair caught the luxurious downlights of the house, flickering and glittering so intensely it was almost unpleasant. That shimmer seemed to flaunt itself as if it were the radiance of her own achievement, stolen from me. This was my house, finally obtained. My castle, my sanctuary. Behind the mask of an accountant, plain and steady in the eyes of the world, I was in fact a ferocious investor. Fixing my gaze upon the truths hidden behind rows of numbers in profit and loss statements and balance sheets, I had silently, alone yet steadily, built my real estate portfolio. And here was the 10th masterpiece, a milestone and culmination. My dream castle worth $1.02 million. Tonight, at this housewarming party, the star should have been no one else but me. This space should have been filled only with words of admiration and congratulations for me. My husband Jason must already be carrying our luggage into the master bedroom. It was unbelievable. Words my ears could scarcely trust, as though my brain refused to comprehend their meaning. Without my permission, without my knowledge at all. The master bedroom, the special place I had debated countless times with the architect since the design stage of the house. The place I cared about most. The place where I, after a day of battle, was supposed to finally shed my armor and find peace from the depths of my heart. And now, they were about to trample my sanctuary with muddy shoes. Brought in were Olivia's gaudy leopard print suitcases, which she must have chosen in ecstatic delight, and the flashy cushions she must have bought at some cheap store. Worthless junk that reflected nothing but her taste. As for Jason, who was showy and easily swayed by others' opinions, he must surely have been carrying the luggage without a thought, merely obeying Olivia's words. The very thought of it filled me with a cold disgust that rose from the pit of my stomach. In search of help, placing my last hope upon him, I turned toward my father. He, as the guest of honor in this house, was savoring with satisfaction the rare single malt whiskey I had specially prepared for this day, seated in the most privileged spot closest to the fireplace. Swirling the amber liquid in his glass and enjoying its rich aroma, his figure looked as though he were the master of this house. Surely he would side with me, the eldest daughter. Surely he would sternly reprimand Olivia for her outrageous, utterly deranged behavior. Yes, I tried to believe that. Somewhere deep inside, I was still desperately clinging to the illusion of family. Yet, when my father caught my desperate gaze, he stepped toward me heavily, as if he fully understood its meaning, without a trace of shame. His unwavering stride resembled that of a triumphant general, strolling through enemy territory after victory. Then, with a perfectly calculated volume that ensured the surrounding guests could hear, yet with words aimed like blades solely at me, he spoke. "Ava, Olivia is right. Your sisters have nowhere to live. With the recession, Jason's job has become unstable. They say they cannot even pay rent. You have succeeded enough to live in such a mansion, so helping your struggling family is your natural duty as both a human being and a daughter, isn't it? The time has come for you to finally repay the debt of gratitude for our hardship in sending you to college." At that moment, I felt the scattered puzzle pieces in my head clicking together, one after another. Every point connected in a single cold line. It was not that they could not pay rent. It was that they did not want to. They simply refused to lower the showy lifestyle they had always flaunted. Even though my father was supposed to live comfortably on his retirement fund, I knew he had squandered most of it on excessive support for Olivia, golf memberships, and fine dining at luxury restaurants. This was not merely my sister's impulsive selfishness. It was a carefully premeditated plan orchestrated by the entire family to seize my wealth and success. They sought to enjoy my success as their own, to take the elegant life in this mansion I had earned with blood and sacrifice, without paying a single price. My efforts, my dreams, my youth that I had sacrificed, all were nothing more to them than convenient tools to fulfill their endless desires. The unshakable truth was that I had covered my university tuition entirely on my own, by applying for multiple scholarships and pouring all of my hours outside lectures into part-time jobs. That fact seemed to have long been erased cleanly from his convenient memory. They drove around in new luxury cars and flaunted their European travel albums to relatives. The reason they refused to support my tuition was an outdated belief that higher education is unnecessary for girls, and the insulting words, "I do not think you are worth the investment." Their assets had always existed only for their pride and pleasures. To him, I remained nothing more than the ungrateful daughter who succeeded only because of the opportunities we gave her. The bewildered, pitying stares of my friends pierced me like countless arrows. "What?" Poor Ava. From afar, yet distinctly, I heard the whisper of undeniable sympathy. However, that very sympathy was now the most unbearable humiliation for me, one that scraped away at my soul. On this stage that should have been devoted to celebrating my success and honoring my hard work, I was being seen as a pitiful victim bullied by her own family. At the edge of my vision, I saw Benjamin, my mentor in real estate investment, and also my trusted attorney in both private and professional matters. He was sitting on a sofa in the corner of the room and watching me with a stern yet calm expression. Only his unwavering gaze showed sanity and trust in me within this theater of madness. I inhaled deeply, deeply once. My lungs ached sharply as though filled with shards of finely shattered glass. To explode in emotion here would play directly into their hands. I would only be proving the label they had always wanted to affix to me, the hysterical, emotional, difficult daughter. That would only worsen the situation. My creed as an investor was to always remain calm, to make decisions based on data and facts, not emotions. And now, in this most troublesome matter entangled with emotions, family, that creed was being put to the test. Like an actress stepping onto the stage, I barely lifted the corners of my lips into a faint smile and said to my father and Olivia, who were convinced of their victory, "I see. Very well. I was just a little surprised and my throat has gone terribly dry. I'll get myself something cold to drink." Turning my back to them, I moved step by step toward the kitchen island counter, my feet heavy, as if wading through viscous water. I felt the bewildered gazes of my friends stabbing into my back, but I kept my eyes fixed forward. Once I had stepped into the shadow of the counter, Benjamin approached quietly, his face filled with concern. "Ava, are you all right?" His low voice was the only sound that reached my ears clearly amid the commotion. "This is the worst situation." As I poured water into a glass with trembling hands, I answered in a voice only he could hear. "Yes, it's the worst. But I don't want to ruin the party right now. Tomorrow I'll need your help, legally and decisively." Benjamin looked me in the eyes and nodded firmly. "Of course, I'll come here first thing in the morning. Until then, don't try to fight this alone." His words, like an anchor in a raging storm, calmed my heart just a little. Anger, sorrow, despair, betrayal. Those scorching emotions swirled, collided, and eventually fused into one. An unshakable determination, hard and gleaming like a diamond. The luggage carried into the master bedroom. Those tasteless suitcases were no longer mere belongings. They were the undeniable, decisive evidence of illegal occupation, foolishly left behind by their own hands. For the few hours remaining until the party ended, I would let this foolish, greedy family enjoy their fleeting dream of victory. Let them drink champagne, relax in my house, and indulge in fantasies of their parasitic future. Tomorrow at dawn, I will strike them with the cold hammer of the law, showing them the true reality without the slightest mercy. I took my smartphone from my pocket and hidden in the shadow of the counter so that no one would notice. I began to type a message to the moving company I always used, requesting an emergency booking for the earliest slot the next morning, typing quickly but without a single mistaken letter. My fingers moved with icy resolve, not with anger, without the slightest falter. The next morning, as if on cue, when the party's clamor had miraculously faded into silence, Benjamin arrived at my house with the dawn. We watched quietly over coffee as the movers carried Olivia's and the others' belongings out of the house. When all the work was done and the truck had driven away quietly, Benjamin turned to me. "Now then, Ava. About last night, this is not simply a family quarrel. This is a clear attempt at unlawful occupation. You have consulted me before about their repeated financial demands. Their demands have escalated in proportion to your success. Honestly, I had predicted that at some point they might resort to this kind of physical intrusion." I sank deeply into the sofa. This is the same as a business negotiation. Do not be emotional. Strike precisely at their weaknesses. The household finances you once analyzed for them out of goodwill. That will be our greatest weapon. Yes, they are proud and maintain a lifestyle beyond their income. They relied on my success to justify their own wasteful spending. I am sick of it. I understand. Benjamin nodded as I released the pent-up feelings I had held inside, then took a laptop from his briefcase. Which is exactly why this cannot end with an emotional shouting match. We will draw a clear boundary with legal force. Based on your testimony, I will adapt the contract templates I had prepared for contingencies to fit this case. While listening to my words, he typed on the keyboard at astonishing speed. Then he printed several documents on a portable printer. Listen, they will certainly attack you emotionally. They will call you cold and ungrateful, and in the end, they will threaten to sue. That will be the moment to show this. Benjamin handed me the contract and a reference sheet summarizing the costs and the timeline for the legal procedures necessary to evict trespassers. Do to them what you do in investments. Stay calm, dismantle them with facts and data. As an accountant and an investor, this is your strongest form of combat. Thanks to his precise advice and preparation, the last trace of wavering in my heart vanished, leaving only a steel-like resolve. Immediately after, as if scripted, the doorbell of my house rang shrill and insistent. The monitor showed, just as expected, my father with his face flushed red with anger, and beside him my mother, about to burst into tears yet equally full of rage. I gave Benjamin a calm glance for reassurance, and then, slowly and as if in slow motion, I opened the heavy front door. Ava, what on earth do you think you're doing? No sooner had I opened the door than my father burst in, shouting. His voice bore none of the false dignity of last night. It was raw, exposed anger. What do you mean, what do I mean? I replied. I simply returned unwanted items that were unlawfully placed in someone else's home without permission to their rightful owner. Is there a problem with that? My ice-cold composure and the unexpected counterattack seemed only to fuel his rage further. Don't be ridiculous. Last night you said you would cooperate with our proposal. I never said any such thing. I answered calmly, laying out only the facts. I said I see. That meant I understood your outrageous request, not that I agreed to it. You unilaterally announced it in front of a crowd of guests without giving me a chance to object. I merely tried to avoid making a spectacle on my celebratory night. Don't you dare say I forgot. The memory of how, in the past, you hurled insults at me, calling me cold-blooded and ungrateful, and spread baseless gossip through the family when I refused your unreasonable financial demands is still fresh. Then my mother, who had been silently hiding behind my father, suddenly launched into her trademark tearful performance in a high, hysterical wail. I'll move back in again, as many times as it takes. You have no right to evict us. We are family by blood, aren't we? I gave birth to you. No, the right to evict rests with me. I shook my head slowly but firmly. The house deed, the property tax payment certificates, everything is in my name, Ava Miller. And if you once more set foot on this property without my clear permission or dare to say you intend to live here, I will call the police without hesitation. At those words, my mother stared at me in disbelief, as if her daughter were suddenly speaking a foreign language. The police? We're family. Why would you call the police? If you did that, we'd be shamed in the community. Please stop using that convenient word family as a get-out-of-jail-free card for your illegal acts. I spoke quietly, but every single word carried the weight of years of anger and resolve. What you did yesterday, even if you are blood relatives, constitutes a clear criminal act under the rule of law. Trespass and unlawful occupation. In this country, sadly, blood ties are no pardon for those crimes. My calm, legally grounded statements left my father and mother speechless for the first time. At last, they began to really grasp how utterly unreasonable and law-defying their selfish plan had been. My father scraped together what was left of his crumbling pride and, as a final act of resistance, forced out a voice. I'll call a lawyer and sue you. I'll make it known to the world that you're a cold-hearted daughter who won't care for her parents. Oh, what a coincidence. I lifted the corner of my mouth slightly. That's exactly why I prepared for this in advance. I cast my gaze toward Benjamin, who sat quietly on the living room sofa. Benjamin here is my attorney, and he is an expert specializing in real estate law. Would you like to hear directly from him, a professional, just how reckless and unwinnable your scheme truly is? Then I looked my father straight in the eye. There was no longer a frightened daughter before him. And if you want to talk about suing me, I'll gladly take you on. Father, do you know how long and costly the legal process of evicting unlawful occupants can be? First comes a certified letter, then filing an eviction lawsuit with the court. During that time, attorney's fees, court filing fees, and endless hours accumulate. All of those costs fall entirely upon the losing party. With your current financial situation, can you even cover such enormous expenses? Think back to when I, as a CPA, analyzed your household finances out of goodwill years ago. Golf memberships far beyond your income, useless insurance policies, and extravagant entertainment expenses just to keep up appearances. At that time, I warned you. I told you that continuing like this would lead to collapse. You ignored that warning and continued wasting, and this is the result. Benjamin rose silently, yet with a commanding presence that dominated the room, and my father staggered back a step as though intimidated. The blood drained from his face, his fury transforming into fear. By now, it was clear as day that they had no chance of winning. If you wish to maintain even the bare minimum of a relationship with me as father and daughter from this point forward, there is only one condition. I thrust the contract Benjamin had just drafted into my father's hands. It stated clearly and concisely that from now on, they would never again make financial demands of me. They would have no say in my assets whatsoever. And when visiting my home, they must first obtain my permission and schedule an appointment. Read this carefully, understand it, and sign it, and I will continue at the very least the minimum of a family relationship with you. But if you cannot accept these terms, then our ties end today. From this moment on, not only legally, but emotionally, we will be nothing more than complete strangers. With hands trembling in both insult and fear, my father accepted the papers. The dry scrape of his fingers against the pages sounded unnaturally loud. They were being forced into the greatest decision of their lives, to accept the new, sound order I had laid down and barely preserve their relationship with their daughter, or to lose forever the eldest child they had so wrongly believed to be their money tree. That answer still hung in the heavy, damp morning air. After I presented the contract, all contact from my family ceased for several days. Like the silence before a storm, my phone remained mute. What finally shattered that suffocating balance was a call from a completely unexpected person. It was from Olivia's husband, Jason. "Ava, I need to speak with you." His voice was more serious than I had ever heard and utterly exhausted. The shallow frivolity he had shown at the party was nowhere to be found. I agreed to meet him at a quiet cafe away from prying eyes, not far from my home. When Jason arrived at the appointed time, his face was gaunt, utterly unlike the man who had been downing champagne in my house only days before, and deep shadows lay carved beneath his eyes. He did not touch the coffee the waitress brought, simply stared at it as it cooled, before he came straight to the point. "I've decided to divorce Olivia." Those words went far beyond anything I had expected. I had assumed he came either to ask for money or to persuade me on Olivia's behalf. What on earth happened? What happened, you ask? Jason let out a dry laugh, full of self-mockery. You were right. We were on the verge of becoming actual criminals. Afterward, I confronted Olivia and her parents about how absurd it all was, and they confessed everything. Olivia had told me, "Ava has prepared a room for us. It's a surprise, so we'll announce it at the party." That's why I carried the luggage as I was told. She said it was only natural to help a sister who had succeeded and had the means. I was a fool to believe it so blindly. But it was all different. From the beginning, they had manipulated me with a meticulous plan to parasite off your home. When you walked toward the kitchen and the air froze, when I saw the pitying eyes of your friends, that was the first time I realized something was terribly wrong. Your family lacks the most basic sense of decency and ethics. His words no longer sounded like someone else's story. They carried the sting of my own pain, forcing me to relive it. He too was a victim of this family. Olivia doesn't know the real meaning of work. She doesn't understand the value of money or how much labor and responsibility it represents. She always believed it was something her parents, and later you, would provide unconditionally. I cannot spend the rest of my life with such a person. I am utterly fed up, from the bottom of my heart. With that, Jason stood up, left money on the table for both his untouched coffee and mine, and walked away without a single word of farewell. Reflected in the glass door, his back was filled with the crushing loneliness and resolve of a man who had made a heavy decision. That night, after I had finished dinner alone and was working in my study, there came a faint, hesitant knock at the front door. She had not even had the courage to ring the doorbell. Looking through the peephole, I saw Olivia standing there, her eyes red and swollen from crying, the luxury brand clothes she had worn to the party now wrinkled and disheveled. The moment I opened the door, she collapsed to the ground and began crying like a child. "Ava, I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. Jason handed me divorce papers." I did not invite her inside. I simply stood there with the door open, letting the cold night air flow in, looking down calmly and without emotion at my sister, who sat sobbing on the stone steps of the porch. There was no sympathy. There was only the cold truth of self-inflicted consequence. After a while, my parents, clearly having run after her, arrived behind me out of breath. When they saw the scene, they were struck dumb. Their once prized youngest daughter, whom they had spoiled without restraint, now reduced to such a pitiful, ruined figure. That was the unmistakable final outcome brought about by their twisted love and misguided parenting. My father said, "Ava, I am truly sorry. We were wrong about everything. We leaned on you, depended on you far too much." My mother simply stood beside Olivia, silently shedding tears. I did not invite them inside. This castle I had built with my blood, sweat, and tears was no longer a sanctuary they could step into, carelessly and thoughtlessly. They needed to understand that with their own bodies. Revenge was already over. In the first place, revenge had never been what I wanted. What I had longed for was the basic respect due to any independent human being, and a healthy, unshakable boundary that would never again be violated. Words are no longer necessary. I picked up a business card from the living room table and gently placed it in my father's hand. It was the card of an excellent financial planner Benjamin had introduced to me. My success was not because of luck. It was because of thorough market research, meticulous risk management, and above all, the cold judgment not swayed by emotion. What your family has always lacked are precisely those things. I continued. My voice was calm, yet carried the authority of a teacher speaking to students who knew nothing. If you truly recognize your mistakes from the depths of your hearts, and if you truly want to start over with your own strength, then this will be my final investment in you. All of you must take the basic financial management course taught by this person. Learn the true value of money, the true meaning of work, and the responsibility of standing on your own feet. Learn it again from zero, like kindergarten children. That was the steep but only path toward rebuilding their lives by their own power. I did not lend them money. I did not exchange new contact information. I only paid in advance the tuition fee for that course. That was, as their eldest daughter and as a successful individual, the last and greatest mercy I could extend to them. Months later, at a cafe I visited for a business meeting, I happened to see Olivia desperately taking orders and wiping tables. Her hands, once decorated with expensive gel nails, were roughened. And though her face showed undeniable fatigue, the arrogance of sizing up others had vanished completely, replaced by the modest yet certain light of someone trying to live by her own strength. At last, she too seemed to be learning the true meaning of cash flow with her own body. Our eyes met for a moment, but neither of us spoke. We simply exchanged small nods. That was enough. Another day, an unfamiliar envelope arrived in my mailbox. The sender was my father. Inside was a household income and expense report, written in his clumsy yet careful handwriting. It detailed, with the neatness of a child's homework, how they had cut back on wasteful spending such as dining out and entertainment, and had begun living frugally yet steadily within their means. At the end of the letter, there were no words of gratitude or apology, only a single, powerful word: thank you. From afar, I watched over their modest growth while I placed my own life, my own time, above all else. The mansion that had once driven me to the brink of despair had now become a place of true tranquility, belonging solely to me, free from anyone's intrusion. On weekends, I invited friends, drank wine before the fireplace, and practiced yoga on the balcony while basking in the morning sun. All of it was the peace I had won for myself. The clear boundary line drawn between my family and me was not a cold line of severance. It was a distance born of respect, necessary so that one day we might face each other again as truly independent individuals.